Some of you may have heard what my startup is doing in Latvia. airBaltic SeatBuddy is our product. It's a white label platform launched by airBaltic and provided by us, Satisfly. It's a social seating and intelligent seating platform. So we match passengers by their flight mood, whether they want to be sociable and chat on board or if they want to sleep and relax during their flight. Further on, we connect their social profiles and understand what is the best match one-to-one. It has launched 8 weeks ago and is going quite well so far. airBaltic has been very supportive and we're really happy with it. The reason why I'm here is that I want to talk about how the idea was conceived and how difficult it was to go through B2B sales for a young tech startup. It all started in 2008. We had this great idea. Well, the idea actually came before in 2005, but it was not very feasible at the time. There was no social networks. There was no ability to connect with customer profiles quickly and effectively. So in 2006-07, we waited and we waited. In 2007, I had to build some industry knowledge. I went to work for an airline. It was a bit of a coincidence that it happened in an airline. I was in Korea doing some training, and for a few months, I was very lucky to work for Asiana Airlines, a Star Alliance Korean carrier, where I learned all the insides of an airline running. It's quite complicated, of course, and the more I learned, the more I understood how difficult it could have been in the next years. So finally, I understood that the airline industry is very difficult to run. This is a good cartoon that shows how an airline CEO must feel every time a quarterly report comes in. The airline industry has been through deregulation 30 years ago to 20. Some countries are still regulated, but the point is that all of a sudden it switched from a protected model to a free market model where competition started to destroy the old and bigger players. We have regulations that control and add cost to every single bit of operation. The last feat by the European Union is the emission trading scheme, which means that airlines have to pay carbon taxes when they fly to Europe. And it adds on to the cost. And like this, there are so many other taxes and factors that complicate the operations. Then something everyone knows about is oil price volatility. Well, an airline cost base is usually represented by 1/3 or even more for low-cost carriers by fuel prices. So if the price of oil in a year ranges from 80 to 140 US dollars, you can understand that that cost base totally killed the potential revenue. To make it worse, especially when we launched in 2008, the global economy dictated how the airline industry was profiting. So and the financial meltdown made all the global corporate travel disappear from the map. As a consequence, every single airline posted losses in 2008, or almost every single airline, even low-cost carriers. And as a result, usual statements by airline corporations is that the total industry losses amount to billions every year. In the good years, they may break even, but that hasn't happened in a while. So we decided to enter this market very proudly and very happily and say, okay, let's make money out of it. It's important to say that not everyone in the airline industry, not every player loses money. There's airplane manufacturers, there's IT suppliers, there is handling and operations suppliers. They all make money. So the airlines are the only ones losing money. And just as long as you don't start an airline in the airline industry, you have a lot of chances. So in 2008, we decided we would launch, and we said, okay, this is our departure takeoff runway, and we are very eager to take off. Let's go full throttle and make sure that within 1 year, we're going to have a launch customer. And it actually went extremely well for the first year. In 2008, May, June, we started developing a platform. We built up the first team. The team changed many times further on. And in 2008, November 6th, I was in Portland signing the first LOI, letter of intent, with Hawaiian Airlines. I was very excited. And by 2009, I was down the drain. Management changes, corporate rebranding exercise, blah, 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 blah. And the project was canned because the lead of the project changed role and another one changed. And that's something I'm going to talk about later, about big corporation. And the following year were represented by a good series of failures. And I have a list here because there are so many that I have to read them. No, it's blank screen. Okay, I'll remember. 2009, I'm not going to mention the airlines with which we failed unless it's public. There was a very interesting carrier in South Asia, a total leader in their sector. We granted the sponsorship of the two CEOs. There's a long haul and a short haul division. Anyway, both the CEOs were sponsoring the product, Satisfly. Both were very eager to see this new thing on their airline. And only in 2011, I gave up on that because I realized that whatever the CEO or the CEOs think doesn't reflect what the senior management or the other decision takers think. And you need not only one person to decide in a big corporation, but you need a lot of people. So securing by personal connections or by legal or illegal practices a CEO's support is not enough. 2010 was further highlighted by another launch failure with Oceanic airline. After a good few meetings, I kept emailing this internal sponsor, potential project leader. He was the perfect person to launch internally because he had developed something similar from another perspective. So he had exactly in mind what we were doing, and it was his little baby as well. Except that I kept emailing him, and for 3 months radio silence until I got an automatic reply, inexistent address. Oops. So I went to check on LinkedIn, and I found out that he was working at another airline, a bigger airline, so it was kind of better, but at the same time I had wasted like 6, 8, 9 months of lead development and signing NDAs and meetings in different continents and so on. Yeah, all this involves a lot of traveling, by the way. I was constantly jet lagged for 3 years, and I'm kind of happy that now I settled down in Riga for the summer, because for the first time in my life I haven't been jet lagged for more than 2 months in a row. Once I even started ran a marathon jet lagged, and that was not funny. In 2011, we went on with another airline. Oh, in 2011 is the first time we spoke with airBaltic. We started speaking actually in 2010, but we realized in 2011 that the project was not going forward because of management changes, because it took somewhere in between 9 to 10 months to get through the process of validating the contractual agreement with the legal department, and things changed meanwhile, and so on. Another big thing of corporation is legal. Ooh, goosebumps, look. And then we kept saying, yes, the runway is still long, we have a lot of space, but in the meanwhile we learned a few lessons. The first most important lesson was, your runway is never too long. Especially if you're in a B2B environment where you don't start small. You can't just start with a few users, with small revenue. When you start, you have to start with a customer that most likely is 20, 30, 50 times your size, and the agreement is millions or anyway hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't just say, let's start small. You have to start as big as it requires. So you can stay small as long as you don't sign the agreement, but as soon as you sign the agreement, you have to have something in place. And we'll come to that later. So it was really complicated to manage this, giving the perception of having a big corporation, Satisfly corporation, sponsoring conferences, speaking at events, always showing up in the right places, but at the same time having a very, very small cost base. So what saved us, and the only reason why we are here in 2012 launching with airBaltic, is that we acted big, but we played very small. So most of the development of the platform was made by my co-founder, Eduardo, who is not here now. Actually, he works for Apple. Hi, Eduardo, if you're watching. And the fact that we saved on any possible cost. All unnecessary evil was cut. Previously, in 2006, I worked for another startup. I was not a co-founder there, I was just called in as a consultant. And I noticed how the founder, very smart guy, kept branching out in so many different projects with his own family business, with side projects, with branching different turning, pivoting. He had basically 5 or 6 things on his desk every day. So the time he was actually dedicated to his startup was a fifth of the day, of the working day. So even working 24 hours a day wouldn't make enough to lead the company. Also, he acted with his cost expenses. He had acted as it was already running operations while he was pre-operations. So dozens of thousands of euro of expenses every month for offices, personnel, and a lot of unnecessary stuff, which would have only been necessary when you actually deliver the project. And finally, we said, okay, 2011 is a little bit tricky. Let's aim for 2012. Yes, for the 4th time we doubled up and we refunded and we kept investing. And the only real thing that we learned is that you have to overbook your sales pipeline. Why? Because one of the reasons why it was also always a 6-month, 12-month deferral from one lead, from one failure to the other, was that we always waited to launch with one designed launch partner before going back and harassing or anyway pushing sales to all the others. So if you have a very small customer base, lead base to pick from, which is happening in the B2B environment, we only have, let's say, 10, 20 customers, airlines, that could dare being the first ones launching this product. You can't just wait until one fails to try with the other one. You have to try 12 at a time. And in a way we did it, but on the other hand, we were not pushy enough. So only at the end, only at 2011, when we said, okay, the final last ever cutoff date for this project is March 31st, 2012. That's it. If it doesn't work, then I'll find a job. Well, then in January, I started saying, okay, well, perhaps now I'm not going to push on 1 or 2 leads, I'm going to push on 20. And it worked. I mean, after all, that's what you need to do. It's like it's a similarity with the B2C industry. You have to try more at once, but it requires way more resources because keeping up connections and interactions and visiting and speaking at conferences and phone calls with 20 airlines in 24 time zones can be a little bit difficult. And most of the good advice that we had in the past came from our advisors. I'm not going to repeat whatever everyone tells you about startups, that you have to have good advisors. That's pretty obvious. In our particular case, we have, and I'm proud to have, Patrick Murphy, who was chairman at Ryanair in the good old days. So he knows something about airlines. He constantly consults low-cost carriers about how to run their business. So whenever he sees me going a little bit off course, and he helps me focusing back on what airlines really want, rather than the blah, blah, blah sales talk. Another very good guy is Jeffrey. Jeffrey O'Rourke is chief executive at the most important and prominent in-flight magazine company. What he knows how to do is to lead a big global operation, selling magazines to all airlines all around the world, and how to sell to airlines. So he really helped in this. It's not just about, this is what VCs typically sell you. Oh yeah, we're going to connect you with your customers. No, well, he's doing it. No VC in the world will be able to connect me with 30 or 40 potential good leads, considering the difficulty to achieve those people in high levels at the airline industry. And the third and closest friend is Freddie Laker. May be confused with Sir Freddie Laker. He has not achieved knighthood yet. His father, Sir Freddie Laker, founded the first low-cost carrier in the world in the late 70s, I think, or early 70s, flying from London to the East Coast. The operation was called SkyTrain, and for the first time was selling tickets at £29 or something like that, and it was also the first big global case of cartel when British Airways and American Airlines and other carriers decided to team up and drive this airline out of business. And unfortunately, it worked. But Freddie Laker had a lot of stories to tell. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2006. But his son still remembers a lot, and he consults me a lot on the industry. And most important, Freddie has had his own startup in digital advertising, and he sold it successfully a few years ago. So he's also consulting a lot on growing a small team to a medium-sized team and selling to big corporations. His first customer, I think, was Coca-Cola or something like that. So how did Jeffrey help exactly? This is 2 days after I met Jeffrey. We were already pitching together at an airline in the Philippines. It was just a short hop from Hong Kong. So we said, okay, let's go together and see what happens. What he taught me is that you have to find the right interlocutor, at least the first one. Then it's going to branch down to and spread around into the corporate chart to other important people. But the first one you pick is very important. If you cannot sell internally, you're wasting your time. And yeah, of course, it's always good to keep contacts and relationships. And sometime he may or she may become useful when he's going to take a smaller decision on the project. But if you don't start from the right person, and it doesn't have to be on top. As I said before, CEOs don't count that much in airlines. They just blah, blah, blah to the press, but seldom they really want to get involved in taking decisions on a mid to small size project like intelligent seating could be. This is Freddie Laker. The one in the middle is me. I'm not the one on the left, who's actually a guru of the industry as well. What Freddie told me, and I really made gold of these words, is sell first. Sell first means that don't worry if you don't have a product, just prepare a good deck, go and sell it. You have to be a visionary. After all, if you have a tech startup, you somehow see things when others don't. I call myself a liar sometimes because I know it's not there, but I'm selling it like if it was real. And I understand that people don't get it immediately, and I really have to force them to think in something that is not real. So being a visionary or a liar helps, but whatever, don't worry about having a perfect product underneath because it's not going to help. It's a lot of cost to develop till perfection. You're never going to achieve perfection. And once you launch, you realize that 80% of what you've developed was totally useless, especially in B2B, where you don't have a proportionally gradual soft feedback. You launch, bang, and it bounces back like a table tennis ball. And it's a little heavier, so when it hits you in the forehead, it can hurt a little more than that. And then we also have some unknown and undisclosed mentors, which don't want to reveal their identity for obvious reasons. And the most important piece of advice I had from one of them is to pay attention to ADD. And this is a question for the big public we have here today. What is ADD? Is it a mathematical operation? Is it attention deficit disorder? Or is it the IATA code name for Addis Abeba's airport? ADD. By hand raise. Who's for A? Mathematical operation. Good. Who's for D? D. I said D. You're not paying attention. Anyway, you got it. You have to be focused. So if you're, especially if you have technical knowledge about your product, you know how easy or simple it could be to start adding some new features, and you totally get lost in it. And this is a matter of micro-strategy and micro-strategy. If you don't have exactly in mind for long time frames what you want to achieve, you're going to get lost. And also in sales, it's very difficult. You might think that one particular carrier or airline may be interested in one sub-feature of your product, and you start marketing that sub-feature, and then it didn't work, and you wasted so much time focusing on that feature. All the other airlines got confused because you're marketing two different products or features, and they don't understand if it's two different features of the same product, or if you change drastically and the previous one failed and you want to launch another one. Forget it, just go for the same old thing, and then once you get in an advanced stage of conversation with airlines, you may try to adjust your pitch. And that's also something that I always hated. People tell me, But your elevator pitch is always different. Of course, I'm talking to different people. They have different perspective in the industry. In big corporations, as I said before, there's legal, there's operations, there's marketing. Everyone understands a different piece of the product. You can't just pitch it the same to every one of them. So if you talk to consumers, yes, my product has this feature, A, and it only does A. When you talk to a big corporation, you have to first understand who you're talking to, and then you start pitching your product and start from different angles all the time. So you have to be very flexible with that. And getting more in detail about how this parallel B2B to B2C selling goes, we can highlight a few important subsets of understanding. Interlocutor. As I said before, Jeffrey helped me a lot finding the right interlocutors in some airlines, and he's still giving me introductions by every month. So I really, Jeffrey, thank you so much. When you talk to B2B, to companies, you have to understand that your interlocutor may not exactly want to achieve what his corporation wants to achieve. His goals are not aligned with the corporation's goals. So if I'm selling the Satisfly to a loyalty manager, he's going to say, okay, 5 minutes, thanks, just in time. How is this going to benefit my career? And you start thinking 2 years ahead, this project goes well, I get all the merit, and I'm going to become VP, fantastic. Oh, this project doesn't go well, I'm going to be made fun of, and they're going to demote me, I'm going to have to change job. No, I'm sorry, I don't care. So people, especially in big corporations, are very risk-averse. In the airlines, don't mention. Airlines are usually run by operations. So in operations, you can't take risks. Safety comes first. And of course, if being a pilot, I understand that you have your safety check and you don't change your procedures. But when it's about digital marketing, it's a little hard to explain to airlines that you can try and fail and you just switch off the product if it didn't work and nothing happens. Well, that's a little bit more complicated with airlines than consumers. Consumers, on the other hand, only has to decide by himself. And this also gets more complicated when you consider your communication frame. With an airline, you have to talk for a long time before you sell something, and there's a high turnover of people, of individuals. As I said before, down in Australia, I had to talk for months and months, and then he switched airline, and that happened with 10 other airlines. My lead was totally lost. So you have to be quick, but you can't be quick. Your sales cycle, again, is very long, whereas when you sell B2C to consumers, especially with apps or tech-related web-based products, it's a split-second decision. The consumer is going to buy it or is not going to buy it. Who do you have to interact with? In a corporation, you have to talk with many people, multiple players, and you have to go through all the corporate BS that comes with it. So it takes time, and forget about A/B testing, forget about trying, forget about blasting newsletters and messages and see the CTR or your conversion rate on the messages. You have to go one by one, call them up, and it's very time consuming. And finally, the availability of customers. In my case, for airlines, I just have 1 or 2 dozen potential first customers, whereas if you're talking to consumer marketing, you go up to billions. So in conclusion, when you're talking to an airline or to a big corporation, your sales strategy has to be aligning planets. There are some parts that you can shape, that you can predict, and that's the orbit of the planet. You know when more or less they're coming to align all together. In our case, we knew that social, that digital, that mobile, that a lot of factors were converging to our product being appealing to airlines, but we had to find all the people. We had to find a good project lead to be in sync with us at the right moment. We had to find a good commercial director to be in sync with us at the right moment. We had to find a good IT leader. Many times our project was actually drained by IT. One of our failed launches with Tiger Airways was actually due because of their fleet being grounded all of a sudden in Australia. Happens. But the reason why it took us 6 months to get to IT integration stage is that they were so afraid of our IT integration to destroy their IT systems. Well, then I finally walked forcibly into their offices one day and said, okay, now we do it together. Run this query on your servers. No, but it's going to shut them down. Run the query. Okay. Oh, it took us a second. Yeah, good, thanks. Now we can go on. And there was our IT meeting with Tiger Airways. Operations. Oh, I forgot operations. So many people, so many different schemes going on. Corporate communications. Well, they have to talk to consumers. After all, so they want to have a say in it. And legal. It looks like a small planet, but trust me, it counts more than anyone else. It can, an agreement can sit on their desk for weeks without being looked at. Chief officers. Not one, not two, not three, and it's not even sufficient to have their support. And finally, the board. The board usually doesn't really know much what digital products are, and social and mobile and social networking and social media. So it's hard to get to explain by the C-level executives the product to C-level and board members. Get out there. It's the only way to have all the previously mentioned people have a little bit more comfort in sponsoring your product or placing a signature, because if they've seen you speaking at conferences for 4 years, they've seen your brand around, they've seen the postcards that we will distribute later. There was a launch campaign sending paper postcards to every airline manager I knew, because that was the only way to let them somehow connect with the brand. Being on the industry magazines, being in a big media, it takes years of networking. It's the only way to have your brand recognized at a certain point. It's really old school, but you need it with big corporation. So in conclusion, if you want to sell to a big corporation, you have to extend your runway as much as you can. It's a binary outcome. It's not start small. You have to go all the way until you take off. And until then, you will just hear a lot of no's, doors shut in your face, and you have to keep paying the bills. Like Freddy says, sell first, build later. You're always in time to build it. When you sign an agreement, you can take 2, 3, 4 months of development time, integration time, and it's going to take the corporation as well a lot of time. So you can worry about building later. Network a lot, like a spider. You really have to reach everyone. Because of the high turnover, when people move from airline to airline, they can always be useful. And they can always end up somewhere or in a better environment to deliver your product. And no ADD. You really have to focus on your targets. So we wanted to change our strategy a lot of times. We even wanted to go to B2C for a while, and it was the hardest ever thing to resist. Of course, having had 1 million passengers using our systems on 1 million different flights would have been a dramatic failure with a big cost. Having no passengers on no airline was partly failure with no cost. So we kept it the latter way until we took off with airBaltic. And finally, thanks a lot for listening. We are here in Latvia because we're launching with airBaltic, and we're looking for developers. We're looking for a tech lead. We are welcoming him or her on our team with all the benefits of a co-founder. And if you're not a developer, you may tell this to one of your developer friends. We use the details can be found if you write to jobs@satisfly.com. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much, Sergio. The only thing I worry about is that he's told everyone that B2B is a terrible thing to do.
It is. I'm still saying it is very terrible.
Which is not the case, because it can work out very well. But it's different from B2C.
It's terrible to your self-esteem.
Ah, yes. Well, but you're getting over it now that things are working out.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any quick questions? We have probably time for a couple of questions. Viesturs at the back. Yeah, so the question was, how did you stay funded? This is for the video, of course. How did you stay funded during this long haul?
4-year runway, how did we stay funded? Well, first of all, we spent very little compared to any other tech startup you may measure. We don't have external funding. To now, we're fully self-funded. The reason being that my business partner, co-founder, and I used to run an IT consulting company back in Italy, which provided most of the funding, and we sold it 2 years ago. So with that proceedings and sales, we could keep funding this venture. Of course, it was quite hard because there was not much left for us. It was just a matter of keeping investing, but it was a lucky situation. I understand most startup founders may not have this luck to already have another startup, but it was an easier business. it was not ambitious, but it gave us a lot of training on how to sell, on how to run a company. We had 10 employees, we knew how to manage a lot of stuff, and that's in return helping us on this B2B business. So start small, maybe start small with a smaller company with less ambitious goals, just to know how to run operations, and then move on to an ambitious project that can help.
Okay, Alexa?
I want to ask how you deal with air companies, because they have very big competition between them, yes? Do they ask for some exclusivity, at least in some region or something like that?
Yeah, fortunately, there is a good habit in airline industry suppliers, and that is that exclusivity has a price. So as I said before, airlines don't have money, so they don't have money to pay for exclusivity. That's a very short, very easy concept. We could have offered it, but there was not a selling point anyway. Sooner or later, they understand that air travel is very commoditized, so exclusivity or competitive advantage is a very little incentive for selling.
Yeah, but some general advice to everyone: if you ever get asked that question, the first answer is exclusivity costs money.
Exactly.
Because that changes the conversation immediately.
Exactly.
So, any more?
Is there any difference in selling for business in Latvia and abroad? Is there any specifics here?
What I can say is the differences I experienced between selling to airBaltic and other global airlines. Yes, most of the people speak English well, but when it comes to some particular departments, if they don't, it can drag along times a lot. For the rest, it's a very business-friendly country, I found. Very loyal, transparent, and I mean, people make a company. So overall, I can say that Latvian people are easy to work with, and that makes it easy to work with a corporation in Latvia, as opposed to other countries where, for example, in Asia, I can say it's really hard to understand who's the decision maker. It's really hard to read the organizational chart and talk to the right people. If you don't show up with a suit, you're not gonna even be heard. Of course, here it's a very good compromise of understanding and hierarchy. Last question.
Any more? Yeah, one more. How do you make money?
Okay, that goes back to the company. Transactional and intelligence. So for each seat assignment that we suggest to the airline, we charge a fee, and for each customer profile that we keep up to date, data mining, social information, and delivering it in an actionable way to their frequent flyer program or CRM, we make money per each profile per month.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks.